This young man's name is Gu Genteng. Having just finished a short break, he was on his way to resume his studies when he unexpectedly received a message from Su Mukyu, a senior student he hadn't seen in a long time. She told him she wanted to drop by his place today. Seizing this rare opportunity, Genteng immediately invited her out for a meal. He rushed back to his apartment to prepare, dressing as neatly as possible. Just then, Genteng spotted a girl acting very strangely, standing pensively in front of the boarding house gate. It wasn't until the afternoon, when he had finished getting ready and was leaving for his meal, that he saw the girl was still standing there. Genteng frowned. Her face looked incredibly familiar. Suddenly, he remembered his idol-obsessed best friend, Tran Kwok Chu. Memories flooded back, and he realized she was Lu Ruyan, a former member of the famous idol group Dream Suite who had recently retired. Gu Genteng, eyes wide with surprise, pointing at the girl, his voice hesitating. Are you Lu Ruyan from Dream Suite? Hearing her name, the girl's reaction was immediate and aggressive. Lu Ruyan, with a cold gaze, she lunged toward him, pinning him back. She flicked the lighter open, the flame dancing dangerously close to Genteng's face. So what if I am? Gu Genteng startled, taking a step back and raising his hands to protect his face, his voice tinged with defensive threat. What are you doing? Put that away or I'll call the police right now. Lu Ruyan, sneering with a cold smirk, showing no fear as she leaned in further, her words a challenge. Go ahead, call them, let's see you do it. Not wanting to invite trouble or let a small matter spiral out of control, Genteng backed down. Gu Genteng hurriedly bowing and waving his hands in resignation. I am sorry, I didn't mean to bother you. With that, he ran off as fast as he could, fearing he would be late for his important appointment. When he arrived at the restaurant and saw the familiar silhouette, he was overjoyed. Gu Genteng waving excitedly, a bright smile on his face as he called out. Sister Mukyu, over here. It was freezing outside, so the two quickly stepped into the restaurant to warm up. Gu Genteng looking affectionately at the girl opposite him, raising his glass. Congratulations on returning to your studies after such a long break. Su Mukyu smiling gently, her eyes crinkling with joy as she raised her glass in return. And congratulations to you, Genteng, for getting into Mantung University. In truth, Genteng's hidden motivation for working so hard to enter that school was to be where Su Mukyu was. Deep down, he had always harbored the intention of telling her how he felt, but he had yet to find the courage. After the meal, they stepped outside. A cold gust of wind made Mukyu shiver slightly. Gu Genteng quickly unwinding the wool scarf from his neck, he stepped close and carefully wrapped it around her, his gaze tender. It's very cold. Wear my scarf for now to stay warm. Su Mukyu, her cheeks flushing pink, she pulled the edge of the scarf up to hide half her face, her voice shy. Thank you, Genteng. They bid each other goodbye. We returned to the apartment gate. Genteng was stunned to see Lu Ruyan still standing in the same spot, even though it was now past 11 p.m. Lu Ruyan staggering slightly toward him, her eyes glazed but her tone sharp as she pointed directly at his chest. Listen carefully, don't you dare tell anyone I'm here. If you breathe a single word, she gritted her teeth, raising a fist, I'll break your head, understood? Having delivered her threat, she turned to walk inside. But after only 2 steps, she lost her balance and collapsed, fainting right in the middle of the path. Gu Genteng rushing over in a panic, shaking her shoulder. Hey, Miss Lu Ruyan, wake up! There was no response. Genteng had no choice but to grit his teeth and carry her on his back, racing to the hospital through the freezing midnight air, a truly absurd situation. The next morning, Gu Genteng was deep in sleep when he was disturbed by the insistent ringing of his doorbell. He groggily opened the door to find Lu Ruyan standing there. Lu Ruyan holding a bag of breakfast, her complexion looking healthier, a faint smile on her lips. I just got back from the hospital and picked up some breakfast on the way. Do you want to eat with me? Gu Genteng, eyes wide with suspicion, immediately taking a step back without a word. No thanks, slam. He shut the door in her face without hesitation. Leaning back against the door, Genteng thought to himself, being nice out of nowhere like that, she definitely has an ulterior motive. That noon, right after his classes ended, Genteng messaged Su Mukyu to ask her to meet. However, she declined, saying she was busy and had forgotten her scarf, so she couldn't return it to him yet. In reality, Mukyu was lying. At that moment, she was resting her chin on her hand, lost in thought, a small smile tugging at her lips as she remembered the warmth of Genteng carefully wrapping the scarf around her neck. On Genteng's side, he was feeling gloomy because he couldn't see his crush. As he walked listlessly, Lu Ruyan suddenly jumped out to block his path. Lu Ruyan patting his shoulder, her voice bright. Hey, where are you going? Gu Jintang startled but immediately regaining his cold composure, he ignored her and kept walking. From that day on, Lu Ruyan waited patiently at the apartment complex every day to strike up a conversation with him. She approached him so frequently that the neighbor next door became convinced she was a desperate ex-girlfriend trying to win him back. Even Jintang couldn't believe a former idol like her could be so persistent and thick-skinned. The following morning, Lu Ruyan even tracked him down at the university. Feeling embarrassed and fearing gossip, Jintang quickly grabbed her hand and pulled her into a secluded corner. Gu Jintang crossing his arms, taking a deep breath and speaking firmly. Listen clearly, I already have someone I like. I am not interested in an ambiguous relationship with you. Just give up. Hearing this defensive outburst, Lu Ruyan suddenly burst into a giggle. Lu Ruyan waving him off, her eyes sparkling with amusement. Good grief, what are you thinking? I'm just trying to be your friend. Seeing Jintang's confused frown, she sighed, her voice dropping into a tone of bittersweet sincerity. Lu Ruyan looking into the distance, a flicker of sadness in her eyes. Something terrible happened in the past and I decided to leave the entertainment industry. Since then, I've withdrawn, not wanting to see or talk to anyone. But now, I want to try to change, to start over. Partly because we live near each other, and partly because you helped me when I was in trouble. I decided to make you my first friend. Hearing her sincerity, the defensive walls around Jintang's heart began to crumble. Gu Jintang scratching his head sheepishly, taking out his phone. Then, let's exchange numbers? Lu Ruyan nodded happily. As they walked back, her stunning looks and star-like aura drew the eyes of everyone around them. Lu Ruyan turning to him, her eyes full of expectation. Do you want to have dinner with me tonight? Gu Jintang shaking his head apologetically. I can't. My department is having an orientation party tonight and it's being held in the same area as Sister Mukyu's academy. I have to go. At evening at the orientation party, Jintang was happily chatting with friends when an unfamiliar young man approached and draped an arm over his shoulder. The stranger kept prying for information about Lu Ruyan. Seeing that Jintang wouldn't talk, the man tried to provoke him, pressuring him to drink in hopes of getting him drunk enough to spill the beans. Gu Jintang picking up a glass, a confident smirk on his face. You want to get me drunk? Let us see what you've got. He downed glass after glass to put the man in his place. In the middle of the tension, his phone rang. It was Lu Ruyan. Jintang excused himself to answer it in the hallway. Seeing this, the stranger followed him stealthily, looking for a chance to talk to the idol. Moments later, hearing an argument through the phone, Lu Ruyan, who was nearby, found Jintang clutching a beer bottle in her hand. The moment the young man saw Lu Ruyan, he acted as if he struck gold, immediately lunging forward with crude remarks. Lu Ruyan face cold as ice, stepping back and flatly rejecting him. Back off, you are not in my league. Don't bother me. Despite the direct insult, the man was shameless and continued to grab at her hand. Seeing Lu Ruyan gripping the beer bottle tightly and fearing she might lose control and do something drastic, Jintang quickly snatched the bottle from her. Gu Jintang tilting his head back and chugging the entire bottle in one go, then tossing the empty bottle aside with a clatter, glaring at the man. If you're so tough, drink with me. Exploiting the man's stunned silence, Jintang seized the moment, grabbed Lu Ruyan's hand, and ran at full speed away from the party to a safe street corner. Once they reached a quiet spot, Lu Ruyan suddenly collapsed onto a bench and began to sob uncontrollably. Lu Ruyan covering her face, her voice choked with sobs. Why do I bring trouble every time I go out? I am so useless. Until now, Jintang had thought she stayed inside because of social anxiety or a psychological barrier. Lu Ruyan raising her tear-streaked face to look at him, confiding. Living alone in this world is so hard, but I can't hide in my house forever waiting to die. I just want at least one friend. Someone who will reach out and help me when I am in a mess like this. Gu Jintang, his heart softening, he patted her shoulder to reassure her. Don't worry. I promise that from now on, I'll step in to help you whenever it counts. Besides, I've always wanted to be friends with someone rich. He cracked a joke to lighten the heavy atmosphere. Seeing that she had stopped crying, Jintang asked how she knew where to find him. Lu Ruyan pointed ahead, explaining that every year during orientation, the majors hang up large banners. She simply followed the signs. The two strolled around the campus for a while until Jintang suddenly remembered his main purpose for the evening. He dashed off to find Mukyu, leaving Lu Ruyan to follow slowly behind. We finally found Mukyu. She immediately recognized the person walking behind him. Su Mukyu eyes bright, pointing and calling out her name loudly in the middle of the crowd. "Oh, isn't that Lu Ruyan?" Hearing her identity shouted out so publicly, Lu Ruyan frowned in annoyance, glared at Mukyu, and turned to walk away in a huff. After dealing with the mess and walking together, Genting realized it was past 2 am. The buses had long stopped running. Su Mukyu tried to call a friend to ask if she could stay over, but no one answered. Gu Genting sighing, scratching his head. "There's no other way. Let me take you back to my place for the night, and I'll ask Sister Rian to help out." Back at the apartment, Mukyu wanted Lu Ruyan to pretend to be her roommate over the phone to explain things to her parents. Initially, Lu Ruyan crossed her arms coldly, unwilling to help the person who had just outed her identity. Gu Genting clasping his hands together, blinking pleadingly as he showered her with compliments. "Beautiful, kind, and most generous Sister Rian in the whole world. Please help her this once, I'm begging you." Being flattered to high heaven, Lu Ruyan tilted her chin up, a smug smile tugging at her lips. "Fine. Since you have such a silver tongue, I'll help her." With the parents' permission sorted, the three decided to buy some drinks and snacks to drown their sorrows. As the alcohol took effect, the two girls began to let their guards down. Su Mukyu cheeks flushed red, hugging Ruyan. "I'm sorry about earlier, I didn't mean to shout your name like that." Lu Ruyan also tipsy, patting Mukyu's back. It's okay, I was too short-tempered too." The two girls ended up huddled together, laughing and chatting animatedly, leaving Genting sitting beside them, utterly speechless. Suddenly, Lu Ruyan staggered to her feet, saying she wanted to go out onto the balcony for some fresh air. Fearing she would catch a cold, Genting grabbed a coat and followed her, leaving Su Mukyu fast asleep at the table. Standing on the windy balcony, Genting draped the coat over her shoulders. Gu Genting softly and sincerely explaining, "Sister Mukyu really didn't mean to upset you. She only stayed back to talk to me, which is why she missed the last bus. Actually, she and I have known each other since before university." Hearing about their close friendship, Lu Ruyan shed a tear, her shoulders shaking as she remembered the shallow, opportunistic relationship she had experienced in the entertainment industry. Seeing the tear roll down her cheek, Gu Genting hesitated for a second before reaching out to take her cold hand, gently pulling her head to rest on his shoulder. He hoped this small bit of warmth could comfort her wounded soul. But seeing her so vulnerable only deepened his curiosity and his desire to know the real person behind the idol mask. The next morning, Gu Genting woke up with a splitting headache. He spent a good deal of time in the bathroom dealing with the aftermath of too much alcohol. Lu Ruyan looked tattered, her eyes swollen from crying the night before. Su Mukyu had taken advantage of the early dawn to catch the first bus home. Genting walked out to see Lu Ruyan standing on her tiptoes, trying to reach something on top of a cabinet. Since it was quite high, he stepped in to help. In the process, he accidentally knocked over a pack of cigarettes. Gu Genting picking up the pack, frowning in confusion. "Whose cigarettes are these?" Lu Ruyan, her expression shifting. She didn't answer but snatched the pack away, walked straight to the bathroom and flushed them all down the toilet. Watching her evasive behavior, Genting was intensely curious. Who did those cigarettes belong to? What kind of trauma was in her past? But he knew he couldn't just ask. He muttered to himself about searching for a retirement scandal online. Just then, Lu Ruyan stepped out to talk to him. Fearing his intentions would be discovered, Gu Genting quickly grabbed a trash bag and bolted for the door, shouting as he ran, "I'm going to take out the trash, and I'm not curious about your past at all." Watching his clumsy, comical exit, Lu Ruyan stood at the door and smiled with relief. After that night, Lu Ruyan happily treated Genting to fried chicken to return the favor, and he excitedly agreed. A month passed in a flash. One afternoon, Genting was waiting at the foot of the apartment for Lu Ruyan. To his surprise, she arrived with Su Mukyu. The three decided to stroll together and admire the cherry blossoms blooming around the university campus. Lu Ruyan was excited, posing and asking Genting to take photos of her. Looking at her through the lens, he felt that she was vastly different from others her age. She seemed innocent and carefree, like someone from another world, someone who had never had the chance to experience the simple, ordinary joys of youth. As evening approached, the group split up. Genting and Ruyan walked Mukyu to the bus station. On the walk back, Lu Ruyan stepped close and showed him a photo she had secretly taken of him while he was looking at Su Mukyu. Lu Ruyan holding the phone in front of him, her head tilted with a suggestive smile. "Look at your face while you rewatching her. Do you like her so much that you've lost your soul?" Gu Genting startled, his cheeks instantly flushing red as he scratched his head in embarrassment. Was it that obvious? Though he admitted it, deep down he knew the bitter truth. Mukyu didn't feel the same way. Every time he asked her to go somewhere just the two of them, she politely declined. If she did agree, it was always on the condition that Lu Ruin came along. Despite the sadness, he cherished their time together and resolved to keep his unrequited feelings hidden. After walking for a while, they sat on a stone bench to rest. Suddenly, Lu Ruin asked to hold his hand. They walked back to the apartment hand in hand. But because his mind was wandering through his complicated romantic feelings, Genteng walked straight into a lamppost with a loud thwack. Lu Ruin witnessing this, she doubled over laughing, pointing at his forehead. "You're such a fool. How can you walk right into a pole like that?" The next afternoon, just as Genteng entered the apartment gate, he ran into his neighbor, Van Track. Knowing Genteng was still single, Van Track clapped him on the shoulder and invited him to a blind group date that evening. Van Track winking suggestively. "One of my friends had a last-minute emergency, so we have an empty slot for a guy. You're handsome and bright, come fill in for me. Who knows, you might find a girlfriend tonight." Genteng was still confused and about to decline, but the older man took his silence as consent and walked away. Knowing Genteng was going on a date, Lu Ruin wasn't angry. Instead, she was excited to help him dress up. Her goal was to see how dashing the kid would look when properly grown. Lu Ruin standing on her tiptoes to straighten his collar, observing the result with sparkling eyes, then playfully wagging a finger in warning. "You look the part. But listen, this is just for fun, don't you dare bring a girl home." Hearing this contradictory statement, Genteng walked away feeling puzzled. He wondered if Ruin had any romantic feelings for him or if she just saw him as a younger brother. Was she really not bothered or jealous at all that he was going on a date with another girl? At the karaoke room that night, everyone had gathered. Though he was the last to arrive, every eye in the room turned toward Genteng the moment the door opened, drawn by his refined, student-like good looks. The atmosphere was lively. Everyone was eating, drinking, and singing. Two of the girls, fueled by a bit of alcohol, playfully pinned Genteng down and applied bright red lipstick to his lips as a prank. Seeing the red stain on his lips in the reflection, Genteng was suddenly reminded of Lu Ruin's lips. Then, Van Track stood up and announced a singing penalty for the latecomer. A girl with orange hair in the group proactively brought the microphone to Genteng. As he sang his penalty song, the girl sat below, gazing at him intensely. Finding Genteng exactly her type, she decided to make a move. She took off an earring and pretended to drop it, intentionally kicking it toward where Genteng was standing to create an excuse to talk to him. Meanwhile, back at the apartment, Lu Ruin was curled up on the sofa clutching a pillow, feeling bored and restless being home alone. Back in the karaoke room, Van Track introduced a new game to increase intimacy: cross-cup wine. The rules were tricky. The level of physical contact between pairs would increase based on the lot they drew. Strangely, the first two pairs drew normal levels like holding hands while drinking, but when it was Genteng's turn, he somehow drew the most difficult level. At this level, the rule required one person to hold wine in their mouth and then feed it to the other via a kiss. The girl paired with him was Doi Nhwa Kenki, 21 years old. A month ago, she had suffered a painful breakup with a boyfriend of over a year. Though her heart was cold and scarred, she had harbored a tiny hope when joining the party that she might meet someone who could make her heart flutter again. Unexpectedly, that happened the moment she locked eyes with Genteng. Nhwa Kenki took a deep breath, gathered her courage, and took a sip of red wine. She closed her eyes and slowly leaned in. As their lips were only millimeters apart, about to touch, Doi Nhwa Kenki, with her heart pounding and overwhelmed by nerves, her throat reflexively constricted, and she swallowed the wine instead. The room erupted in laughter, and her face turned bright red. Hearing her friend's persistent teasing and encouragement, she bit her lip and reached for the glass to try again. But Genteng placed his hand over the glass, gently stopping her. Bu Genteng smiling apologetically, his tone firm but polite. "Let's stop here. Actually, I've never kissed anyone before. And I don't want to lose my first kiss to someone I've only just met." Hearing his honest confession, the crowd groaned in disappointment. Van Track, sensing the awkwardness, penalized Genteng by making him go to the neighboring karaoke room to sing a song for strangers as an apology for ruining the game. After the party ended, the other four weren't satisfied and wanted a second round. However, Nhwa Kenki had drunk quite a bit and felt dizzy, so she asked to head back to her dormitory. Seeing a drunk girl heading home alone at night, Genteng offered to walk her back. On the quiet path, they shared their past heartbreaks. Bu Genteng, hands in his pockets, looking up at the night sky, his voice somber. To me, things like unrequited love, it's not always true that giving your all means you'll get something back. Sometimes, your efforts are just meaningless. As they walked, Engi suddenly stopped, looking down with a sorrowful expression. Fearing his words had touched a nerve and made her cry, Gentang stepped closer and carefully brushed her hair away from her face to check on her. Fortunately, she was holding back her tears. However, the softness of her hair against his fingers made Gentang's heart skip a beat. Unconsciously, he found himself thinking of Lu Ruyan. They continued in silence until they reached the female dormitory gates. Boy and Engi smiling with relief, waving goodbye. "Thank you for walking me home. Message me when you get back so I know you're safe." Gentang nodded. But in truth, there was no room left in his mind for Engi. His thoughts were entirely filled with Lu Ruyan. The moment he turned the corner, he broke into a sprint, racing back to the apartment with a burning desire to see her face immediately. By coincidence, as Gu Gentang arrived breathless at the apartment, he saw Lu Ruyan sitting on a stone bench waiting for him. He breathed a sigh of relief and sat down beside her. They talked under the dim glow of the streetlights. Lu Ruyan turning to him, her sharp gaze suddenly lingering on his mouth, her eyebrows knitting together. "What's that red stuff on your lips? Is that lipstick?" Gu Gentang startled, wiping his mouth and explaining hurriedly. "Oh, no, it's just, the people at the karaoke party were messing around and put makeup on me." To break the awkward tension, Gentang honestly recounted the weird drinking game from the party. However, he carefully omitted the part where he almost lost his first kiss to Engi. But a woman's intuition is sharp. Noticing a flustered expression and hesitant speech, Lu Ruyan seemed to sense something. A heavy atmosphere of unspoken conflict and jealousy settled between them. Suddenly, Lu Ruyan leaned in without a word and gently pressed her soft lips against his. Gentang's mind exploded. Stimulated by her initiative, his instincts took over. Gu Gentang wrapped his arms around her waist, pulling her close, and returned the kiss with a fierce, passionate intensity. And just like that, in the early hours of the morning following a group date, Gu Gentang officially lost his first kiss. The kiss reached a fever pitch until it was abruptly cut short. The lighter Lu Ruyan was still holding unconsciously in her hand burned Gentang, causing him to pull away with a start. Lu Ruyan, her face slightly flushed, trying to maintain her composure as she stood up and patted his shoulder. "Remember to soak that in cold water so it doesn't sting." With that, she turned and walked straight inside, leaving Gentang standing there in a daze. His emotions were in a total mess. He told himself that if he just went to sleep, everything would be back to normal tomorrow. It was just a moment of impulse. But the next morning, he hadn't forgotten. He remembered the taste of that kiss perfectly. To force himself to stop thinking about it, he decided to take his books to the library to study. As he left the apartment, he froze when he saw a brand new room for rent sign posted in front of Lu Ruyan's door. Gu Gentang frowning, muttering to himself. Why would she suddenly want to rent out a room? Though he intended to study, his mind kept wandering back to the kiss. Thinking about it more deeply, he realized he had been so caught up in his own emotions that he hadn't considered how she was actually feeling. He sat there lost in thought, his pen unconsciously scrawling Lu Ruyan all over his scratch paper. After classes, Gentang went straight home to find Ruyan and make amends. The moment she saw him, she happily invited him in. They sat opposite each other, the air between them still a bit strained. Lu Ruyan resting her chin on her hand, a teasing smile on her face as she brought up the topic. "That kiss last night was quite something. You surprised me." Gu Gentang shocked, his face turning beet red as he rubbed the back of his neck. I thought I did a terrible job." Lu Ruyan giggling, tilting her head. "I wonder what you'll say later on if some girl asks you about your first kiss." Once the embarrassment subsided, they sat down for a serious talk. Gentang asked about the rental sign outside. Lu Ruyan sighing, leaning back in her chair. "Since I stopped singing, you and Mukyu are my only friends. It's too quiet around here, so I want to rent out a room to meet more people and make the place feel more like a home." Gentang nodded in agreement. He suggested that after his upcoming exams, the three of them, Ruyan and Mukyu, should go out for takoyaki. Lu Ruyan happily agreed. Suddenly, she reached out and took his hand, then gently rested her head on his shoulder. Gentang felt his heart thumping, a bit nervous, but he let it be, and the two enjoyed a rare moment of peace together. Over the next few days, Gentang was constantly distracted from his studies, his mind looping back to that kiss. Today, he was waiting in the lobby for Mukyu to finish her exam so he could invite her for takoyaki with Ruyan. When Mukyu came out, she happily agreed. Coincidentally, she was heading to the library to borrow some books and invited Gentang along. At the library, while they were standing in line at the counter, a male senior student suddenly approached and began flirtatiously talking to Sumikyu. Hu Gentang standing beside her, fists clenched, glaring at the senior with daggers in his eyes. The way the guy was teasing her made Gentang extremely uncomfortable. The breaking point came when Sumikyu smiled politely and turned to the senior. "Are you free? Why don't you join us for a meal later?" Hearing that, a wave of jealousy and disappointment washed over Gentang. "Do you really not want to go out with just me that much?" he thought bitterly. Gu Gentang, his face darkening, he spoke to Mukyu in a cold tone. "I just remembered I have something urgent to do. Please excuse me." He turned and walked away in frustration. After a while, he began to question his own conscience. Thinking back, he had held hands, shared an ambiguous relationship, and even kissed someone he had only known for a short time. Most importantly, he hadn't told Sumikyu any of it. Gentang was currently in a state of total turmoil, filled with guilt and confusion. Meanwhile, in another corner of the library, Thoyan Huakengi was slumped over a table, dozing off. Suddenly, a book fell to the floor with a loud thud, startling her awake. For the past week, she had been staying up late every night in the library, trying to bury her heartbreak in her books. Thoyan Huakengi rubbing her temples, whispering to herself, "I can't keep going like this. I have to change. I must start a new life." To realize that determination, the first thing she wanted to do was move out of her stifling dormitory and find a room to rent off campus. The story suddenly shifts back to 2 years ago, when Ko Kwanduan and Mokthur were still high school students. He had always wondered why Mokthur had abruptly dropped out of school back then. To Mokthur, eyes averting, voice filled with sadness. "Because of some family issues, I had to leave home temporarily and couldn't attend classes. My attendance wasn't high enough, so the school forced me to withdraw." Kwanduan had once walked her all the way home one afternoon. Just as they stepped through the gate, Mokthur's father rushed out, violently grabbing her arm and hurling vicious insults at her. Being witnessed in such a humiliating scene by her junior made Mokthur feel utterly ashamed. To Mokthur, tears streaming down her face, throwing her backpack hard at her tyrannical father, then turning to grab Kwanduan's hand. "Run." Back to the present, Kwanduan looked at Mokthur's back, suddenly realizing that she had always stayed the same. The one who had truly changed was him. He had once naively hoped she might accept his confession. At this moment, Mokthur had finished her work. She found Kwanduan and invited him to the rooftop of the library. To Mokthur, lightly pushing the iron door open, stepping out into the breeze with a smile. "Not many people know this door can be open. This is my favorite spot." She walked to the railing and began pointing into the distance, telling Kwanduan the names of the famous, glittering buildings in the city. The high-altitude air was refreshing, the warm yellow lights and the brilliant starry sky made the scene incredibly romantic. To Mokthur, turning to look at Kwanduan, her eyes heavy with unspoken thoughts, her voice trembling with suppressed emotion. The atmosphere here, it easily makes one vulnerable enough to blur out words that shouldn't be spoken. "That's exactly why I didn't want to come up here with you at this time." Hearing that cryptic statement, Ko Kwanduan frowning, deeply confused. "What do you mean by that? If something is on your mind, just tell me." But Mokthur said nothing more. She simply lowered her head, turned around, and walked downstairs, leaving him alone. In truth, deep down, Mokthur liked Kwanduan very much. Seeing him leave earlier out of jealousy had actually made her happy. Many times, she wanted to drop her family burdens and bravely confess to him, but her harsh circumstances wouldn't allow her to be that selfish. Kwanduan stood frozen on the rooftop with a million questions in his head, unable to understand what on earth was happening. She seemed perfectly normal when they came up, laughing and chatting, but then her mood suddenly shifted like that. It was truly baffling. A few days later, final exams came to an end. Knowing Kwanduan had just finished his tests, Luan Chuyen ran over to his room, wanting to invite him out to distress. However, he was exhausted and only wanted to bury himself under the covers and sleep. Luan Chuyen pouting, pulling on his leg, even tossing his blanket onto the floor. "Wake up. Come play with me." Despite the disturbance, Kwanduan stubbornly hugged his pillow and kept his eyes shut, refusing to leave his beloved bed. Suddenly, the doorbell rang from downstairs. Luan Chuyen exhaling sharply, dropping the blanket. "HMPH, I'll let you off this time. Someone's at the door, I am going down to open it." As it turned out, the person at the door was the guest who had contacted them about renting a room a few days ago and was now moving in. Luan Chuyen standing downstairs, tilting her head back to shout up the stairs. Kwon Duong, come down and help the new housemate move her things up. Hearing the persistent calling, Kwon Duong reluctantly stretched and walked downstairs to meet the new roommate. The moment he faced the guest, his eyes widened, and his sleepiness vanished instantly. The new tenant was none other than Thoyen Hwa Kang-gi. Rewinding to a short while earlier, Thoyen Hwa Kang-gi had been feeling extremely gloomy after scouring the city without finding a suitable room. Suddenly, she saw the room for rent sign that Luan Chuyen had posted at the gate and decided to ring the bell. Hearing the chime, Luan Chuyen opened the gate. Seeing the exquisite beauty of the woman before her, Hwa Kang-gi couldn't hide her admiration. Chuyen enthusiastically led her inside to see the room, while also frankly mentioning that the tenant upstairs was male, hoping she wouldn't mind. Just as Hwa Kang-gi was feeling a bit hesitant about the inconvenience, she spotted several limited edition cosmetics on the shelf, items she had wanted since last year but were out of stock. Luan Chuyen, noticing the girl's interested gaze, waving her hand generously with a smile. These are all items brands sponsored for me. If you like them, I'll give you a few as a moving-in gift. This gesture caught Hwa Kang-gi by surprise and immediately earned her favor. Back to the present, as she faced Kwon Duong on the stairs, Hwa Kang-gi realized it was a small world indeed. The male tenant upstairs was the very person who had rejected her kiss at the karaoke bar. Luan Chuyen patting Kwon Duong's shoulder, winking. Make sure to be sociable and help her move her stuff. That way, you won't have to feel shy about coming into my room later. Kwon Duong, scratching his head awkwardly, quickly rolling up his sleeves. Let me help you carry your things, Hwa Kang-gi. Due to the stress of hiding their past blind date from Luan Chuyen, he accidentally tripped over her name. Thoyen Hwa Kang-gi, her face darkening, brushing his hand away with an indifferent attitude. It's Hwa Kang-gi, are you holding a grudge from the other date or something? Why are you getting my name wrong on purpose? Kwon Duong broke into a cold sweat, thinking he was in for it now. To make amends, after the moving was done, he quickly suggested inviting the two girls to the Long Wong restaurant near the school to enjoy some spicy vitamins, alcohol, and celebrate their new member. That evening at the table, Thoyen Hwa Kang-gi, wanting revenge, forced Kwon Duong to drink penalty shots. The two girls leisurely sipped light, sweet fruit wine, while Kwon Duong was forced to down 2 bottles of light liquor back to back, emptying every glass. For the sake of making peace, he gritted his teeth and endured it. Soon after, Kwon Duong was completely wasted, staggering as he moved. Seeing Kwon Duong and Hwa Kang-gi chatting and laughing happily, Luan Chuyen felt an immense sense of irritation. Luan Chuyen, her expression turning cold, standing up abruptly. You two keep drinking. I am going out for some fresh air. A while later, unable to take it anymore, Kwon Duong also stumbled out of the shop. Thoyen Hwa Kang-gi followed to support him. Standing in a hidden corner, Luan Chuyen accidentally overheard their conversation. Kwon Duong leaning against the wall, face flushed bright red, slurring his words. I'm sorry, after taking you home that day, I forgot to reply to your message. My heart was actually in such a mess then. He paused. The alcohol was making him lose control. Kwon Duong looking up at the sky with glazed eyes, whispering. Perhaps, I've truly fallen for that person. Although the person Kwon Duong was referring to in his mind was Luan Chuyen. By some miracle, Thoyen Hwa Kang-gi's face flushed red, mistakenly believing he was talking about her. Before he could finish his sentence, Kwon Duong lost his balance and slumped onto Hwa Kang-gi's shoulder. Seeing this irritating sight, Luan Chuyen couldn't take it anymore and immediately stepped out from her hiding spot. Luan Chuyen angrily stomping on the toe of Kwon Duong's shoe, saying coldly. Since you re-drunk, stand up straight and go home yourself. Back at the room, Luan Chuyen tossed him onto the bed. She sat with her chin in her hands, watching Kwon Duong's sleeping face for a long time before taking off her shoes and gently lying down beside him. Luan Chuyen pulling the blanket over both of them, turning to face him, whispering. What if we actually started dating for real? Kwon Duong startled despite being drunk, mumbling a response. Are you crazy? You re the big star Luan Chuyen. How could you? Luan Chuyen wrapping her arm around his waist, burying her head in his chest. But I really like you. You re good looking, you have a nice build, and you have great taste in clothes. Though she admitted her feelings, in his hazy drunken state, Kwon Duong's mind suddenly drifted back to that night on the rooftop with the mock Thur. Why did she take him up there back then? The next morning, Kwon Duong woke up first. Seeing Lu Nhuyen sleeping soundly beside him, he sighed softly, feeling like he truly didn't understand this girl at all. Hearing him move, Nhuyen also woke up. Lu Nhuyen stretching, smiling casually as she touched the stubble on his chin. "We just slept together. We didn't actually do anything. Why are you so tense? Get up, brush your teeth, and let's go out for breakfast." Just as they opened the door to step out, Thoy and Wakenki happened to pass by and witnessed the two of them emerging from the same room with messy hair. Her eyes widened in shock. However, Lu Nhuyen didn't even bother to explain or deny it. Feeling too embarrassed, Ko Kwan Duong grabbing a trash bag from the floor and sprinting down the stairs. "I am going to take out the trash." That morning, out of curiosity, Kwan Duong searched for Lu Nhuyen online. He read about endless dramas from her walking off set during filming and insulting people online to smashing a reporter's equipment. Hesitant, he called Tran Kwok Chu to ask for more details, but before he could speak, he was cursed out by his friend for snitching about Kwok Chu sneaking some salmon sashimi. Feeling that investigating her past made him look like a creep, Kwan Duong decided to hang up and stop looking. Later, Tran Kwok Chu showed up at Kwan Duong's room because his mother forced him to bring food over. Seeing his idol-obsessed friend outside through the security camera, and fearing he would discover Lu Nhuyen was there, Kwan Duong hurried out, took the food, and tried to slam the door shut. Tran Kwok Chu holding the door edge in dissatisfaction, grumbling, "I took the train for nearly 2 hours to get here, and you won't even invite me in for a drink of water?" Suddenly, hearing a girl's voice from inside, Kwok Chu quickly pushed past Kwan Duong and barged into the house to see who it was. But the moment he saw Lu Nhuyen's familiar back, he froze and dropped his phone. Tran Kwok Chu eyes shining, hands trembling in a prayer gesture. "Idol, please let me take a photo with you." As he bent down to pick up his phone, Lu Nhuyen face cold as ice, delivering a powerful kick to Kwok Chu's backside, shouting, "Get out of here right now." From that day on, Kwok Chu brought food and lingered every day, ignoring all attempts to chase him away. Today, his family had just imported a batch of fresh salmon, and Kwok Chu immediately brought some over as a gift for his idol. Lu Nhuyen stepping out the door, looking at the box of fish, and without a word, snatched it and threw it onto the ground, where it rolled away. Seeing his idol trample on his sincere feelings, Kwok Chu's anger exploded, and he began to shout insults. Kwan Duong had to rush down to intervene, threatening to call the police for trespassing before Kwok Chu finally left in a huff, declaring their friendship over. After the argument, seeing Lu Nhuyen cowering in fear from the shouting, Kwan Duong sighed and gently pulled her head onto his shoulder to comfort her. Lu Nhuyen clutching his shirt, her voice tender. "The upcoming cultural festival, what are your plans?" Ko Kwan Duong rubbing his temples. "I promised to help Sister Mok Thur set up the club's booth." Lu Nhuyen looking up, her eyes full of determination. "Find an excuse and get someone else to do it. Because that day, I want to go on a date with you." Soon, the opening day of the cultural festival arrived. While everyone was cheering around the booths, the atmosphere suddenly froze. All eyes turned toward Lu Nhuyen as she appeared. Fearing she would be recognized, Ko Kwan Duong quickly taking off his jacket to cover her head and pulling a baseball cap down to hide half her face. "Stay close to me." The two had a wonderful date, eating, playing games, and ending with a high-energy session at the bouncy castle. While Nhuyen went to the restroom to change, Kwan Duong waited outside and happened to run into Nhwa Ki, who was working a part-time job there. Just as they were greeting each other, Lu Nhuyen stepped out, casually interlaced her fingers with Kwan Duong's, and pulled them away before a stunned Nhwa Ki. Ko Kwan Duong staring at their intertwined hands as they walked, his heart racing, gathering the courage to ask, "Nhuyen, do you actually like me, or are you just playing around?" Lu Nhuyen stopping, turning to look him in the eye, smiling softly. "I do. I like you so much that I could pin you down and kiss you right now." Standing in a nearby corner, Mok Thur, who was carrying a crate for her club, accidentally heard and saw the entire scene. Her face was etched with disappointment and deep thought. Near the main stage, the MIC was calling for 5 volunteers to perform their talents for a 300 yuan voucher. Unexpectedly, Lu Nhuyen stepped onto the stage, making Kwan Duong worry intensely. When she took off her hat and introduced herself, the entire campus seemed to explode with cheers as people recognized the former idol. However, when the MIC handed her the microphone, she stood frozen, unable to utter a word, her body trembling violently. Just as the atmosphere turned awkward, Mok Thur bravely stepped onto the stage to save the situation. Mok Thur holding the microphone, smiling confidently. Hello everyone, I'm her friend. I came up here partly because I want to perform and partly because I want to take this chance to admit that I really like someone, but as for who that is, I'll only tell him privately. With that, she began to sing. Although her voice was a bit exaggerated and off-key, her enthusiasm earned her a roaring round of applause. Meanwhile, Luan Chuyen quietly stepped off the stage. Her mood utterly collapsed and leaned her head against Quan Duong's shoulder. Seeing Chuyen's lonely and fragile side, Quan Duong decided that from this moment on, he would no longer run away from his feelings. The next day, hearing from manhwa Kenki that Luan Chuyen had locked herself in her room, Quan Duong knocked on her door in concern. As he stood there, he was suddenly pulled inside by a strong force. His heart thumping wildly, Quan Duong, unable to restrain himself any longer, pinning Luan Chuyen against the wall and leaning down to give her a deep, passionate, and intense kiss. He told himself that this time, they had to define their relationship. But when the kiss ended and he looked into Chuyen's eyes, he saw they were dull and empty, devoid of any emotion. A surge of profound disappointment made him leave the room in anger. That evening, after refusing Luan Chuyen's request to sit with her at the gate, Quan Duong decided to build a wall of distance. Quan Duong backing away, his voice cold and decisive. I don't want to keep deluding myself. It is true that I've fallen for you, but I don't want my feelings to be treated as a joke. From now on, we should only do what normal friends do. Hearing this, Luan Chuyen, instead of being angry, she rushed forward and hugged him tightly, whispering playfully in his ear. Let us see how long you can keep acting tough and avoiding me. In the following days, no matter how much he avoided her, Chuyen persistently followed him. One afternoon after school, she was waiting for him at the gate to invite him for a drink. Just then, the annoying young man from before reappeared, and Quan Duong instinctively grabbed her hand and ran for their lives. Once they were safe, he asked irritably why she kept following him. Luan Chuyen panting, a radiant smile on her face. Because I want to be with you. With just that one sentence, the entire defensive barrier Quan Duong had painstakingly built instantly crumbled. But at that moment, in a dark corner, a pervert was secretly taking photos of Luan Chuyen with a vile smile. A few days later, taking advantage of the beautiful weather, Quan Duong had the idea to host an outdoor BBQ party. He invited Luan Chuyen, Thoyan Huac Engi, to Mok Thur, Van Track from next door, and even his friend Tran Kwok Chu to join the fun. While they were eating and chatting about the hardships of being a celebrity under constant scrutiny, Quan Duong suddenly noticed a camera flash from the bushes nearby. Quan Duong, his face hardening, shouting, "Someone's taking photos." Immediately, Tran Kwok Chu rushed over and snatched the camera while Quan Duong chased after the fleeing pervert. During the struggle to restrain him, Quan Duong's forehead scraped the ground, drawing blood. After dragging the man back to the BBQ area, Mok Thur carefully used gauze to treat his wound. The man knelt on the ground, confessing he was just an amateur paparazzi and a student at Man Tung University. Van Track, sweating, suggested calling the police. But Luan Chuyen waved him off. Luan Chuyen, her eyes sharp and cold, scoffing. "If we call the police, he'll just get a fine and be released. It won't solve anything. We need to give him a lesson he'll never forget." Seeing Kwok Chu rolling up his sleeves to throw a punch, Quan Duong hurriedly held his friend back. At that moment, Mok Thur, her face burning with murderous intent, grabbed an empty wine bottle and smashed it hard against the brick wall behind the pervert. Shards of glass flew out, grazing his cheek and leaving a bloody scratch. Mok Thur grabbing his collar, hissing each word. "As a human, you should have a conscience. If you dare utter a single word or leak those photos, I swear I won't let you live in peace. Understood?" Terrified, the man kowtowed repeatedly. That evening, Quan Duong brought the memory card, student ID, and a signed confession with the pervert's thumbprint to Chuyen's room. Quan Duong looking at her, voice reassuring. Van Track and Kwok Chu went to his room to wipe all the backup data on his computer. "Keep this evidence as a weapon. If he tries anything in the future, you can use it to ruin his future." Hearing those protective words, Luan Chuyen moved, wrapping her arms around Quan Duong from behind, whispering coquettishly, "Quan Duong, let me have a kiss." However, due to the intensity of the recent events and his own shyness, Quan Duong, blushing, removing her hands, and politely declining, left the girl pouting with regret in the room. After 3 days and nights of non-stop studying, Quan Duong finally finished his last exam. Exhausted, he trudged back to his room and collapsed on the sofa. Luan Chuyen peeking in, her eyes sparkling, waving excitedly. "Exams are over, let's go out somewhere to distress." Quan Duong smiling slightly, eyes half closed. Anywhere is fine, as long as I am with you. ILL go. As soon as he said that, Lu Nhuyen suddenly fell silent, her cheeks flushing red, biting her lips shyly as if lost in thought. Just then, the doorbell rang. Standing outside was Mok Thur with a large suitcase. For some unknown reason, Mok Thur had asked Lu Nhuyen if she could stay at the lodging for a month or two. Looking at her, Kwon Duong suddenly remembered how she had run away from home and dropped out of school before. Since he had plans to attend his class's end-of-term party, Kwon Duong excused himself first. Though he was very curious about the trouble Mok Thur was facing, he decided not to ask. He understood that if she wanted to share, she would reach out to him. Late that night, after the party ended, Kwon Duong wandered through the streets. Seeing broken glass by the road, he suddenly recalled to Mok Thur's cool moment, then thought of Lu Nhuyen's smile. But since he had told himself to only see Nhuyen as a friend, he shook his head to clear his thoughts. Walking aimlessly, he didn't realize where he had ended up until he saw Thoyen Huoc Engi sitting alone by the river, drinking. Since they met, this was the first time he had seen her with her hair tied up high. Kwon Duong walking over, scratching his head and teasing her with a silly smile. Your hair like that, it looks just like the tail of a dog I used to have back in the countryside. Thoyen Huoc Engi glaring at him, deciding not to take the bait, pouring more wine and saying flatly, don't you already have a girl of your dreams? Why are you wandering around here at this hour? Seeing him silent, Thoyen Huoc Engi swirling the wine in her glass, taking a deep breath. Everyone can see Lu Nhuyen's feelings for you. You're the only one intentionally refusing to believe it's real. Looking at Kwon Duong's pensive face, Huoc Engi thought to herself, maybe he doesn't even like Lu Nhuyen anymore. Who knows, maybe I still have a chance. Kwon Duong looking into the distance, suddenly speaking up. Do you feel like meeting here was arranged by the angel of love? As if to bring two people together. Hearing that, Huoc Engi's heart skipped a beat, thinking he was flirting with her. But following his pointed finger, she saw that Kwon Duong was talking about a couple confessing their love nearby. Thoyen Huoc Engi, utterly disappointed, but then laughing bitterly. I really am overthinking things again. She reached up, took off her hair tie, let her long wavy hair fall down, and invited Kwon Duong to walk along the river. She told herself she had to work hard to win her own happiness. Meanwhile, walking beside her, Kwon Duong scratched his head in confusion, unable to grasp what the girls around him were thinking. The next morning, Kwon Duong was yawning as he reached the gate, only to find Lu Nhuyen waiting with her arms crossed. Lu Nhuyen face stern, voice interrogating. Where were you all night? And only the two of you were together? Kwon Duong flustered, waving his hands frantically. You've got it wrong. Huoc Engi accidentally sprained her ankle last night. I had to take her to the hospital. By the time we finished, it was too late to call a car, so we had to sleep in the hospital hallway until morning. Hearing the honest explanation, Lu Nhuyen sighing in relief, her expression softening. Fine. You must be tired after staying up all night. Go back to your room and catch up on sleep. I'll text you later. At exactly 3:30 p.m., Lu Nhuyen messaged him to go for a coffee and a snack. They relaxed together until evening. The feeling was exactly like a romantic date. Leaving the shop, Lu Nhuyen enthusiastically patting his shoulder. Let's go have a few drinks. Kwon Duong frowning and refusing. Your tolerance is terrible. You get wild when you're drunk. Let's just go home. Hearing this, Lu Nhuyen immediately dropped to the ground, clutching her ankle and faking a cry of pain. Oh, I sprained my ankle. It hurts so much. I need alcohol to numb the pain. Even though the excuse was ridiculous, seeing her adorable pouting expression, Kwon Duong couldn't resist and reluctantly helped her into a bar. After a few glasses, Lu Nhuyen cheeks flushed, slowly reaching out her hand to take Kwon Duong's. But Kwon Duong casually pulling his hand back, crossing his arms. Don't start. The getting drunk, holding hands, then baiting me for a kiss script, I know it by heart. I am not falling for it today. Exposed, Lu Nhuyen pouted. She then confided that she had an appointment tomorrow to meet Ha Engin, the leader of her former group, Dream Suite, but she was debating whether or not to go. Kwon Duong banging the table decisively. Of course you have to go. It's an old acquaintance. Lu Nhuyen raising an eyebrow, leaning close to his face to tease him. If the person who invited me was a guy, would you still tell me to go? The sharp question made Kwon Duong freeze for a moment. Flustered, he excused himself to go to the restroom to wash his face. When he returned, he was furious to see a group of guys surrounding the table, flirting and asking for Nhuyen's phone number. In his mind, he cursed, "Are these guys blind? Can't they see she's taken?" To mark his territory, Ko Kwan Duong stepped forward quickly, brushed the young man's hand away, and glared. "Stay away from my girlfriend. Don't you know your place?" The man, embarrassed, mocked Kwan Duong's clothing before leaving, making Annie Chuyen burst out laughing. The next day, due to drinking too much the night before, Lu Annie Chuyen was tormented by nausea. Despite her exhaustion, she still went to the meeting with Ha Hengin. The past came rushing back. When Dream Suite first debuted, there were only two members, Ha Hengin and Annie Chuyen. They had once stood by the river looking at the magnificent city, dreaming of fame. But fame brought endless trouble, paparazzi stalking them and taking invasive photos. The company was indifferent and oppressive. Eventually, Annie Chuyen couldn't handle the pressure and chose to leave the group despite Ha Hengin's pleas. Back in the present, Ha Hengin had come to see her because she wanted to know how her dear sister was doing. Lu Annie Chuyen smiling peacefully, stirring her coffee. "I plan to enroll in school again in the second half of this year. I want to be a normal person." Ha Hengin taking her hand, her eyes gentle. "That's good. Just live the life you want and enjoy the choices you've made." Having shed the burden in her heart, on the way back, despite the heavy rain, Lu Annie Chuyen left her umbrella at the shop and walked through the downpour with a radiant smile. As she reached the apartment gate, she ran into Kwan Duong, who was about to head out. Seeing her soaked state, he felt a pang of worry. Ko Kwan Duong hurrying over, taking off his jacket to cover her. In a moment of vulnerability, Lu Annie Chuyen grabbed his hands, pulled him close, and looked directly at his lips with wet eyes. They were about to share a passionate kiss in the rain when the door suddenly opened and Thoyen Hua Kenki stepped out. Lu Annie Chuyen, startled, quickly pushed Kwan Duong away. Fortunately, Hua Kenki hadn't seen anything yet. Kwan Duong went inside, his heart pounding, thinking, why was she so serious this time? Did she actually be in love with me? Suddenly, his phone rang. It was his father, reminding him to come home tomorrow for his mother's birthday. The next day, at the family BBQ, his mother nagged him about his grades, but his mischievous younger sister quickly changed the subject, asking if he had a girlfriend. Ko Kwan Duong's father patting his son's shoulder, grinning. "So, how are things progressing with Mok Thur? Have you confessed yet?" The question set Kwan Duong into a deep state of contemplation, unaware that the meat he was holding with the tongs had turned completely charred. That evening, just as he returned to his room, he received a call from Lu Annie Chuyen. Lu Annie Chuyen, her voice sweet with a hint of coquettishness. "I called because I missed you. I just wanted to hear your voice for a bit." Then she rambled on about things she wanted to do when in a relationship, placing special emphasis on her dream confession. Lu Annie Chuyen emphasizing every word, full of expectation. "A confession must have flowers, a huge bouquet of red roses. Even if it's a bit cheesy, I'd still like candles arranged in heart shape." Ko Kwan Duong holding the phone, his lips involuntarily curling into a smile. He thought to himself that even a fool could understand she was dropping blatant hints and waiting for him to confess. The next day, in a good mood, Kwan Duong invited the whole house for a drinking party. In the middle of the meal, they ran out of alcohol, so he volunteered to buy more. Lu Annie Chuyen eagerly insisted on joining him. On the way back, the two walked together, sharing an ice cream cone. Under the dim streetlights, as emotion soared, Ko Kwan Duong pulled Lu Annie Chuyen close and gave her an incredibly sweet kiss. But ironically, that romantic scene was witnessed by Mok Thur as she stepped out to take out the trash. The next morning, Thoyen Hua Kenki was furious because everyone had left a mess from the night before and she was the only one cleaning. She stormed upstairs, dragged Ko Kwan Duong down, and forced him to help. Downstairs, Mok Thur with a searching look, discreetly asked Lu Annie Chuyen, "Are you and Kwan Duong officially dating?" Lu Annie Chuyen casually wiping the table. "Not officially yet, we're still just getting to know each other." Kwan Duong walked down the stairs and saw Mok Thur's stiff and somber expression, making him feel a strange sense of unease. As soon as his afternoon class ended, Mok Thur messaged him, asking to meet privately. Ko Kwan Duong took a deep breath, determined to clarify all his feelings today. But as soon as they sat down, Mok Thur looking at him with a determined but sorrowful gaze. "I plan to defer my studies and get a job to earn money." Kwan Duong was stunned. Mok Thur eyes tearing up, gathering the courage to take his hand. "Partly because of family pressure, but partly because I like you. I've liked you since we were in high school. But because of my conservative and violent father, I felt insecure and didn't dare approach you. I originally planned to wait until I graduated and could stand on my own 2 feet before properly confessing. But now, I am afraid of losing you. Afterward, she suggested they go to a movie together the next day. Shocked by this belated confession, Kwon Duong hesitated but eventually nodded in agreement. The next day at the theater, Mok Thur intentionally placed her hand on the armrest, signaling for Kwon Duong to hold it. But Kwon Duong avoiding her gaze, pulling his hand back, pretending not to notice. After the movie, they went to a crane game, sang karaoke, and ate. He thought regretfully that if this were a few months ago, a date like this would have made him insanely happy. But now, it was too late. At the end of the day, Mok Thur told him she would be moving to a friend's house. She apologized for pretending not to know his feelings for so long. The Mok Thur smiling brightly, waving. Next Friday, let's go watch the fireworks together. Watching her walk away, Kwon Duong felt as if a sharp thorn had pierced his heart. He trudged home with a heavy spirit. As he opened the gate, he was horrified to find Lu and Chuyen sitting with her knees tucked to her chest, sobbing bitterly. Kwon Duong rushing over, panicked. What's wrong? Who made you cry? Lu and Chuyen crying and gasping, pointing at a bowl of noodles. Because I wasn't careful eating spicy noodles and I choked. It's so spicy. Looking at Kwon Duong's disheveled state, she astutely guessed the situation. Lu and Chuyen wiping her tears, looking straight at him. You two went on a date today and she confessed to you, didn't she? Kwon Duong was amazed by her deduction. He wondered why she didn't seem to care about her rival. Lu and Chuyen standing up, patting his shoulder with a rare seriousness. Of course I care. But I advise you, do not let a few impulsive hugs and kisses cloud your judgment. Love is a lifelong commitment. Think it through carefully so you can make a decision you won't regret. Is that clear? In the blink of an eye, the day of the fireworks festival arrived. Tamosi Thur stood with her hands clasped, waiting for Kwon Duong. When he appeared, her eyes sparkled with hope. However, her smile vanished instantly when she saw the person walking beside him. It was her own mother. Tamosi Thur fuming with rage, confronting Kwon Duong directly. Why would you do this? You've truly gone too far. As it turned out, a few days prior, Mosi Thur's sister had called Liu and Chuyen and fabricated a story claiming their mother was hospitalized and on the verge of death to force Mosi Thur to return home. In a state of panic, Chuyen had revealed everything about Mosi Thur's situation to the sister. Consequently, what was meant to be a romantic date had transformed into a turbulent family reunion. Seeing that Mosi Thur had finally sat down to speak with her mother and that things seemed to be settling, Kwon Duong quietly turned and left. Late that night, he was sitting alone on the balcony sipping a can of beer when Mosi Thur pushed open the gate and walked in. Kwon Duong startled, standing up guiltily. Is everything alright, sis? To Mosi Thur sighing. It has settled. But you were very cruel to me today, you know that? Kwon Duong scratching his head, speaking quickly. I am sorry, let me make it up to you by doing 100 push-ups. Ignoring his joke, Tamosi Thur stepping forward, her eyes brimming with affection, slowly reaching out to touch his hand. But this time, Kwon Duong took a step back, withdrawing his hand, took a deep breath, and spoke each word clearly. Sister Mosi Thur, I already have someone I like. The atmosphere fell into a heavy silence. Mosi Thur said nothing more. She forced a smile and invited him to the rooftop to watch the fireworks. Standing under a sky ablaze with light, Kwon Duong's mind flooded with beautiful memories of the years he spent pursuing her. He didn't understand how things had come to this point, but his past feelings were truly precious. To Mosi Thur, tears streaming down her face, her voice choking up. Why did you change? Why did you fall for someone else instead of waiting for me? Kwon Duong's eyes rimmed with red, tears falling as well. I am sorry, I only just realized who my heart truly needs. And then, the two of them embraced, sobbing amidst the brilliant fireworks, indifferent to the curious stares of those around them. Thus, Kwon Duong's years of unrequited first love came to a definitive end at that very moment. Having resolved the turmoil in his heart, Kwon Duong felt a surging wave of longing for Liu and Chuyen. He immediately bolted, running at full speed back to the boarding house. As he pushed open the gate, he saw Liu and Chuyen returning from an outing with Fa and Trach and No Gi. Without a second's hesitation, Kwon Duong stepped quickly in front of Liu and Chuyen, looking directly into her eyes, and shouted despite the others standing right there. I like you. Hearing that blunt confession, Liu Nhuyen beamed with a radiant, happy smile, stood on her tiptoes to give him a quick kiss on the lips, and boldly replied, I like you very much, too. Faden Tra Ch and Nhuoc Indi stood there with their mouths agape, forced to swallow the overwhelming display of affection. The next morning, Kokwa and Yuo Wenshi went out to help Mo Si-thur carry her suitcases to a taxi. To Mo Si-thur smiling with relief, waving, I'll be busy for a while, so I want to be in touch. You two must be happy, okay? At that moment, Liu Nhuyen also stepped out to see her off. To Mo Si-thur looking at Nhuyen, asking one final question. You actually like him? Liu Nhuyen tightly gripping Kwa Nuo Wen-chi's hand, replying with pride. I like him very much. The taxi rolled away, carrying with it the unfinished memories of youth. Now, each will have to strive for their own lives and their own choices. Suddenly, Liu Nhuyen leaned her lips close to Kwa Nuo Wen-chi's ear and whispered something enchanting. Upon hearing it, Kwa Nuo Wen-chi's face turning as red as a beet, immediately turned and sprinted toward the flower shop. He told himself that this time he would definitely prepare a giant bouquet of red roses and a brilliant heart-shaped candle display to give Liu Nhuyen the most perfect and thoughtful confession possible.